In this AnKing video, I'm going to show you how to format your card style so that you can make your cards look exactly like how you want them to be. Now I'm going to show you on Anki in a second, but there's a styling portion and a back template. There's also a front template, but just for now I'll use these. And on the back template of a typical close card, it looks like this. Now I'm going to style it with, this is actually CSS here that you're using, so I'm going to use my example. This is a class here with this dot, and I'm setting the font size and the color. And when you put it in here, you say div, and then you do class my example, just like you've had here. And then you need to close it off saying this is where I want that. And then you can set a separate one here that would have it like this. And you can, I'm going to say I want the class here to be my example, but I want the ID, as indicated here by the pound, to be my extra. And so you're changing the font weight of this section here. And again, you need to end it with this. Now, alternatively, you can put the first one here and the second one here, and then just end them both here. So now you're wrapping everything in here like this. Or, and this one I'm not going to recommend, but you can do this. So if we just kind of ignore everything here, you can actually just put it all in here. So if you do div style, because there's not actually a class now if you don't have that, and then you're just putting in this information, and again you'd end it. I don't necessarily recommend that, it gets kind of messy. But Anki has some things that you can use. It uses HTML. This is a line break. This is a line break with an actual line that will show up. This is a line break with a line, but it will actually scroll down to the answer. And then there's things for image as well. And I'll explain this a little further in a second. CSS selectors has a class and ID, as I previously just explained. And then Anki has classes kind of built in, like close for the text of the close, the actual card, the everything. In pertaining to the card. For mobile, which is like, you can also do .iPhone and .iPad if you really want to go that far. And then night mode. One of these is for the night mode add-on, one of these is for the default night mode that Anki has. And then there's properties you can assign, like we just had the font on that previous slide. Like you can do things like color, font size, width, margin, all sorts of good things. So this is kind of what it's like, and I'm going to take you to Anki and show you an example of how this actually works. Okay, I've got a card here, just like what we were discussing in the presentation at the very beginning here, and it's just a basic close card, and I'm going to go into it, and you can actually get to this from the browser, or you're just from here. I'm going to hit E to edit this card, and then there's the fields and the cards. We'll talk about this fields thing in a second here, but I'm going to focus on this cards part right here. So here's what I've got, and it's going to pull up an example of what this card looks like. Now the default close card already has a couple things in here, but this is essentially the idea of what you're going to do, and use these as a good starting place to learn what you're doing, because it makes sense. Here's the font family, we're going to change that to 34. You know, you can tweak things as you want. If you want to change the font family to times, sorry I misspoke, the font size was the first one I changed. You can change where it's aligning, you can change the color of things however you want. Now this is the dot close that I previously mentioned. It's already built into Anki. That's going to change this portion right here. So if we change that to yellow, if I can spell it right, there we go. So it will change like that. Now one thing that you can do is combine these classes. So for example, I can do dot night mode dot close, and I'll actually just copy this for ease and paste that in right there. Now on night mode, you could change it. You wouldn't actually need this one because you've already defined that. If you just wanted to change the color, if we wanted to change the color to red on night mode. Now I actually recommend when you do this that you add a comma and do dot night underscore mode as well for anything that you're setting for night mode, because this one is Anki's native night mode and this is for the night mode add-on, so that way everything matches up. And I'll show you in a second. That's what I've done with my card, but you can do the same thing with .mobile .close and edit things differently. I don't know why you would change the close on the mobile, but one thing that I do frequently change on mobile is image. I'll make them so they're a little bit smaller on my desktop, but I want them larger on when I actually flip over to my mobile devices. Now I'm going to show you kind of what we had done before, where I added my example. You don't actually have to format it like this where they've added an enter line in between each thing. I think coders just typically do that because it makes it cleaner. But what I'm going to do here is change this to italic, if we can do it. And you do need to add the semicolon at the end, and I'll add it like that. Now I want to change this extra section here so that it is all italic. So what we're going to do is add a div class here, my example, just like I've done previously, and you can see that it now makes that italic. Very important to remember that you want to close this off at the end as well, like this. So that's what you can do, and you can also tweak that size to you can tweak that area to be like different sizes, to be different things, however you want. So it's just nice because then you can separate out different parts of your card so that they look differently depending on what you want things to do. Now I also discussed that this is a line break, so you could add another one if you wanted to be an extra space between things. Or you can do the HR, which is actually a line like that. Or you can do HRID equals answer, which doesn't really do much on the close cards. It's used on the basic cards. So I'm going to go in and show you that on an example basic card here. You can see they have the front side and the HRID equals answer. And the reason that they do this for Anki is just so that because you are looking at the front here and the front's still on the back side, but you want it to scroll down to the back. And so that's why they add that there. I primarily use the close card. Now, one great place to start, well, here's a great place to start, is if you, this w3schools.com, they have basically all the different properties that you can tweak when you're adding these classes, and so it's just kind of a great place to learn. But like, for example, display, I've brought this up here, and there's different options that you can put in, and it kind of goes through and explains them, explains what different things you can do, and it also lets you try it yourself. For example, we can go to the try it editor, and you can see how this one was originally set to none. Keep an eye on the red right here, and if I run it, you can see it basically makes that disappear. Also explains what the difference between inline block, etc. So that's just a great place to be learning what you're doing. Another great place is the Anki manual. Here's the top of the manual here. If you scroll down a little bit, eventually you'll find this where it says cards and template, and you can go to card styling, field styling, hint fields, special fields, all sorts of good things. It's a great place to start. It explains things like I've just explained to you with the font family, font size, a little bit of simple HTML and CSS. So really good place to start there. Another great resource is htmlcolorcodes.com. It's just a website like this. There's a couple other websites that work just as well, but you could basically scroll and find the color that you wanted. If we wanted a green that looks like this, then you would just copy this thing here. Copy that. And note that there is this pound sign here, and for whatever reason it doesn't copy here. And let's say we wanted to make the background color that green. I'm going to paste that in. Oh, I must have not copied it. Copy. There we go. Let's paste you in here. And like I said, the number sign doesn't copy over, so I'll put that in manually. There you go. Now you can see the background's really... Now this is a really ugly card, but it's just for example and show. So that's basically what you're going to need to do to get set up. Now I'm going to show you the basics of what I've done with my card. And this is mostly for medical school students, but you could change this around to be whatever you want. So here's the close field, here's the extra field, and if you notice it is editable. And then I have all these hint fields. If you have the hint hotkeys add-on, you can click on them and they will reveal, or you don't have to click on them. If you have the add-on, you can just hit H and it will reveal everything. These are the clickable, this is clickable tags. So if you have the clickable tags add-on, you can click on it and it will bring up all cards with that tag. So it's just kind of a handy tool to have. One thing you can do, and bring this thing up with the fields, is you can change these to be what you want. Now if you're updating to my decks and using my cards, you don't want to tweak these because you'll actually end up changing the note type and causing problems. But let's say you wanted to use this for something other than medicine, you could actually go through and rename these or delete them, or whatever you wanted. Now I have quite the complicated setup here. As you can see, there's a lot of styling, but I'm going to kind of go through this to simplify it for you. But I'm going to go through the most important parts first. The important thing I really want to hit on first, I get asked this all the time, is people ask me, how do I make it so that this just shows up? Well, currently it's set to hint, like this. This is a lecture notes. You can see here's missed questions. What you do is you just delete hint here, and now it will default show up. Now, if you wanted to make it editable, if we go down to my extra section, you can see it is edit extra. You can do edit lecture notes, and then you'll actually be able to click on it and edit it. You can do edit hint missed questions, although I strongly recommend you don't. If you try it, you'll see why. I wouldn't recommend that you do that, but you can add it to fields like this. You can also do it to the close field. However, there's a big issue here, and I'm going to show you why. There is a edit field during review add-on that works on 2.0 and 2.1. You can't use it with close fields. It won't work. It will delete your closed deletions. It's bad, bad, bad news. There is a new add-on, edit field during reviews close. It works fairly well. Just know that it is a beta, and so I can't promise that everything will work perfectly. But if you have this one, you will be able to edit the close field. Now what you'll need to do, and the way I've built this in, is you will want to do it right here. And I've put instructions on how to do that right here, but you would add edit close text just like it says right here. Now the reason for that is this div class here, close field, is making it so that this shows up on mobile. And this div class edit close is making it so this will only show up on the computer. The reason for that is if you have this and it shows up on mobile, it will make your card look really messy and produce an error. So we have to make it so that this will always show up on mobile and this will show up on the desktop, and that's why that is. So hopefully that answers some of the major questions that I get right from the start. Now I'm going to go through all of this user customization thing here, but I'm going to move to a different editor just to make things simpler. This is the Visual Studio Code app that you can just download for free online. It just color codes things and makes it a little bit easier, so I'm going to go through it here. But this is the front template of the card. This is the back template, and this is the styling. So it's basically what we were just looking at. It's just a little bit bigger and easier to use. So what I want to do, so like for example, here's what we were just looking at on the back template. I want to go through this so that you understand what it is and you can customize it to your own needs. So first, we'll start at the front template here. You can see I've got the close, and then I've got a div class timer, and then this is JavaScript. Don't ask me anything about JavaScript. In fact, if you send me any emails about any of this, I probably won't be able to answer your questions because I didn't make this card type. An anonymous Reddit user helped me design it. It is really nice and very customizable and user-friendly, but I'm not that good at coding. I understand enough just to make this video. So this right here is JavaScript within the script thing. I don't understand it at all other than to know that it has a little countdown timer and you can edit it there. You can also edit this portion here. This is the color of what shows up, and it basically shows up in exclamation points with a paragraph break in between them. So you can actually edit that there and edit the time here, and it will do that. Now note this div class timer I've got in the styling portion here with the display. So if you didn't want that timer, you could just change this here to none, and the timer would no longer show up. So that's why I have that. Now I also have it, if we scroll down a little bit, under the colors section, I have the timer countdown color. I have that set to transparent. And when it shows up, it actually shows up as this color. And then down here, even further after the customization section, I'm not going to explain much of this, but just so that you can see if you want to read through all of this to try and better understand it, I do have the same timer class here where I've set the font size and I've set the location where I want that timer to show up on the page. So that's kind of how it works, and I've split them up so that the customizable portion is a little bit easier to read for those of you that don't want to get too crazy. Now after that, I've added this thing down here, div ID pick. Same thing here with the AnKing image hyperlink is a pick. You can see I've added a hyperlink that goes to the playlist of our YouTube with a picture. I'll scroll back to this card. It's down here in the right corner. If you were to click on that, it would bring up the our YouTube channel. So I just added that, but you can turn it off here. Same idea. Now on the back template, we previously talked about these two classes here, and I showed you a little bit about how to change these hints and make them editable. What I didn't show you is that this div class hint is assigned to all of these, but they each have their own ID. So this one's lecture, this one's mist, this one's pathoma, this one's boards and beyond, so that you can edit them individually. So for example, on the font size, I've got these fields set here to 0.5 and these fields set to 0.7. If we go back to my card here, you'll see those are a different size than those. Now, what does it mean when it's set to 0.5 REM versus 0.7 REM? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. What it is here is there's the font size, and it's the HTML font size, which is for the entire thing, and I've got that set to 28 pixels. Now when I say 0.5 REM, what it's going to do is it's going to do half of that, and it's going to do 0.7 of that. Now the nice thing is that this allows you to just change this, and it will change the font size of everything on the card, so you only have to change one number. Really handy. So I'll give you an example of that. Just focus on this part right here specifically as I changed it so that you can see the difference between these two. And we'll change this to 312 to make it really dramatic. You can see they all got smaller together. So that's kind of how that works, just to make it easy for you. Now the next thing here, so there's the size of the hints. I've got the font style. I've got it set to Arial Greek, which is the official font of the Step 1 exam. And if you don't have Arial Greek installed, which I'm guessing a lot of you probably don't, I didn't, it will default to Arial. And you can change that to whatever you want. Now I've got image width set here, and I've set it so that images, you can see for the extra section, the images or the lecture or the images are all set to a max width of 85, and these other ones are set to a max width of 60. And I've done that just because it makes it a little bit easier on your eyes when you're doing it on the desktop. If we scroll down here, I've actually changed it so that on mobile, all of the images will be 100%. Because that's a lot easier. And then I've added these classes for individual cards, image 40, 50, 60, so 40 and up. And I've made it so that if you put this in, the width will be 40%, but on mobile, everything will still say the same. It will always go back to auto. And I'm going to show you how to use this for individual cards. So notice the class is image 40 or 50, 60. And we're going to go into my card here. And I'm going to click on this image here, and I'm going to do Command or Control Shift X. Now I've already added div class image 80, and here's my image here, and you can see I've actually styled my image with a background color. You can read up more on this w3schools.com webpage under HTML images if you want to learn more about how to do that. But I've added div class image 80 to this card, and I've ended it over here. I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'll click on that one and reveal it. You can see how big it is. But if we go back in here, bring the HTML editor back up, we change it to 40 and go back in, click that, you can see it gets a lot smaller. So even though I've set the default of these fields to be 85% and these to be 60%, you could make images smaller without having to use this image resizer add-on, because this will actually resize your images so they're worse quality, whereas this just resizes them on here but maintains the quality. So I personally prefer that. Now the other things that I've got in here, you can see let's go back up to my customized area. You can set the color for just about everything. For the card, my default font color. For the background, now notice this is the colors when you're not on night mode for the closed extra section, etc. Here is the night mode, so I've added night mode. Here's the night mode background color, etc. You can all read through this, and then this is you can actually change the colors for everything that is bold or underlined or italic. I personally don't do anything with that. That's why I have it set to inherit, but you could, and the reason I've included that is because a lot of people like to customize their notes in certain ways. For example, this is the Med Shamim page. She's got a great page on everything, and he has a totally separate card style that a lot of people like, but it's not really compatible with my hint fields and such. So what you can do is scroll down here. This is his CSS. Now you don't need to copy the whole CSS into your card, but what you could do is look through it now that you understand things and see, oh, this is his font family. This is his text size. Here's his font color. Here's his background color, and you can see he is making the bold, underlined, and italicized and closed cards all this color, and he's making bold, underlined, and italicized all these colors. He's making the links, the A, it stands for link, like the hint links, a separate color. So you can see I have all of those in here. I have the A, the B, the U, the I. I've got closed. So you could copy in all of his colors. So for example, you could just copy this in for bold and put it right here under bold, and then your card would look a lot more like his. So that's how you can customize your card to be like other people's that you like, or however you want. One thing I should mention that is really important down here under KBD, I have a few people who see these tags are like this, that I'll actually go into this one so I can show you an example of what fixes. Some people's are overlapping, and I don't know why it works on some computers and not on others. Here's the KBD. What I'm going to do is actually, it's this margin thing here. You can change this to 0 and it will space them out, or you may even want to do 1 or 2. You can see as I'm changing that, the tags are changing. But some people, I believe, are looking like this. They're a little bit overlying each other, and so this is the number that you'll want to change there. And the other thing is you can tweak with all these things and just find out, what happens when I change this to 40, and that's the best way to really like play with things. You add this to 10, like, oh, okay, that's what's happening. It's moving in that direction. So, but just play with it, and that's a great way to get started with the CSS on all of these cards. Another important thing, if you are using my cards to update, when you update with my cards, it's going to overwrite all of your stuff. So I would recommend that you, let's see, we go back to the editor here, find the cards, you select everything here and copy it, and then select this and paste it into a system like this or into a Word document or whatever, so that when you update and my overwrites completely change your card styling, how you had it all set up and took all that time, so that you can just quickly, easily revert it back to how it was. Now, the last thing I want to show you is just something that I personally have added. This is just to my cards. I haven't added this on your card. I did it just for me, but it's a good example and a good teaching tool. There is this add-on, additional card fields for 2.1, and it lets you see the ease. So the info factor is the easiness of a card, and I recently released a video on ease hell and avoiding ease hell, and I use this personally to kind of keep an eye on what the ease of my cards is. So when you download this add-on, you can add this to your cards here to see the ease of your cards. So what I did is I added that here. See, there's the info factor, and I added a div class. So I made it so that I can, this div class edit close, remember, you can only see on the desktop, not on mobile, and that's because this will cause an error on mobile. So I added that div class, and then I added style equals, and I'm basically just styling it right here as opposed to adding a class here. So I've said I want the font size this, I want the color to be this, the font family, I want it to be italics, and I want it to be fixed in the bottom left corner. And so I added this whole thing just like that. The reason I did that is so that I can copy and paste it out without adding extra stuff to your cards every time I release updates. But I just wanted to show it to you so that you know you can do things like that in your own card styles to get the results that you want. So hopefully this is a little more helpful, gets you started on customizing your cards. And like I said before, I wouldn't recommend sending me questions because I probably won't be able to answer them. But I would recommend going to Google, going to this w3schools.com page, as well as the Anki subreddit. There's a lot of people that can probably help you with to answer your questions. So best of luck. Thanks for learning with the AnKing. Be sure to subscribe to our channel as well as follow us on Instagram and Facebook for daily tips and tricks at AnKingMed. Also, here's the email if you have any questions or suggestions for new videos.